The Literati of the Joseon dynasty were really an interesting group of people. They were the well-educated, but they also held power. They studied and they were well-educated because they wanted to pass the exam to certify to be government officials. And so many studied for the exam, but only very few passed the exam. But the ideal was to be a student. Very often a man who never had a position would be called a student well into his senior years in life. They were interested in the classics, in the Confucian classics. They were interested in passing the exam. But some of them wrote stories, some of them were interested in art, and some were calligraphers. Bak Jiwon was a very interesting person. He was the first in what's called the Shidhak school. Shidhak means applied learning, not just abstract theoretical Confucianism, but they were more interested in practical things. Bak Jiwon went to China and saw what was going on in China, and saw the Catholics were in China and they brought Western influence to China. And he was interested in that and wanted to help Korea to improve and lift itself and become more wealthy. He advocated trade, active trade with China. So he was really a leader, a pioneer in his age. Bak Jiwon wrote a very important book called the Yeolha Ilgi. It's a travelogue, a story of his travels to China, but it's much more than that. It's a fairly large book, and when he traveled to a certain place in China, it would remind him of something and he'd talk about it. So it's I can't remember how many chapters, 30-40 chapters, a fairly large book, but each chapter stood out by itself. Some were on philosophy, some were on religion, some were on practical matters, some were on social criticism. It was all sorts of things, more than just the things he saw in China as he traveled along. Today's travelogues, if we call it a travelogue, are very different from what you would call a travelogue of Yeolha Ilgi. Yeolha Ilgi covered everything, and he was interested in science and religion. He was very critical of society. He had a lot of suggestions for how to improve society, and so to call it a travelogue kind of shortchanges it. To compare it to a travelogue today is quite different. But what can people learn from his travelogue? All kinds of things. Science, religion, social criticism, philosophy. He covered all those sorts of things, and he was a real pioneer. I have a personal relationship with Bak Jiwon. I wrote a book that was given an award, and the award was the Yeonam Prize in 1996, Cornell University. And Yeonam is the pen name of Bak Jiwon. So I'm grateful to Bak Jiwon I got his prize in my book.